in here, but hopefully you'll join me before too long. Greetings from tropic Utah. I'm afraid I'm in a little bit of a confined space here, hence the echo. Also, I'm drinking alcohol. This is Son of a Peach. It's actually ale with peaches. Actually got a nice sort of aftertaste to it. So here's to you guys. I hope you guys are doing well. That is definitely good. I wouldn't mind another one. And I haven't even finished it. Sharon, good to see you. Sorry for just the struggle to get online and get prepared. According to the signal here, the signal strength is pretty weak, so I can't really guarantee that this is going to work. But let's just see how it goes. Uh, Josie, good to see you. Lynn Lippy, good to see you as well. Loris, Helena, Helena says she's having wine. So here's to you. Cheers. Let's turn it that way. Cool. So before we kind of get going with episode 56, by the way, I was actually up a couple of minutes earlier, only to realize that it was, excuse me, everything was set up, but it was unlisted. So I was doing a live on an unlisted video, meaning it's not public. So I was actually up earlier, but yeah, that's what happens when you drink on the job, kind of thing. Anyway, I hope you guys are well. I'm going to take you guys to a couple of photos that I took from Antelope Canyon. One of the things that you often, well, basically never see, you always see the inside of the canyon, you never see the outside and so on. So I want to give you guys a little bit of context. What's very interesting as well is the environments I'm in right now are all orange. Like Utah is a very orange state. So I sort of feel like I'm in some way, I'm kind of in the spiritual home um, of Team Peachtree, right? Certainly in terms of palette. And so let me maybe just do this, and then then you guys can see what I'm showing you. I like your sweatshirt. Thanks very much. Murphy says, I'm having a day, glad to be here. Are you having a bad day? I've actually not had the best day. I mean, I think because yesterday was quite extraordinary, I was a little bit bummed out because by the middle of today it was raining. And so you can't really take, in order to photograph these canyons, you need the sun to be shining on them. If they're not, it just doesn't quite look as good. And so I was actually ready to head out to capture the sunset, and then it was not raining, but kind of drizzly. And so then I just didn't go out. And that seemed like a bit of a bummer. So I just had to sleep instead. I've also heard that the Coburg, there's been lots of news in true crime as well. Okay, so shall I show you some of these images? Let me know if there's any problems with volume or anything. So Antelope Canyon is, Susan Smith, good to see you. Antelope Canyon is kind of like a dry riverbed. So when I got there, I was told the first available tour. You can't like just go there yourself. That's kind of what I've been used to doing. You just go there yourself. And they said the first available tour is in like 3 hours. And then I think the look on my face said it all. And they said, oh, you can go down to the lower canyon. You might get an earlier booking. And then I did get one an hour later, and I quickly ran over to Horseshoe Bend and quickly did a walk there very, very quickly. And then I came back here. And then this is the canyon. And it's actually called a slot canyon. It's the way that the water moves through a very narrow space. And as you can see, it's a very dry, sort of sandy dune field. And if you look at that picture, you can see you can see kind of what's going on already. You can see how sand dunes are turning to stone, right? You can see how that whole the delicate lines of the canyon, you can already see how water is going to, and wind is going to delicately chisel very fine shapes in the rocks and in the sediments. So this is the approach. You sort of get into a vehicle. There are about 10, 20 vehicles. There are about 8 people in each vehicle, and then you sort of like a package of sardines, and you go off. It costs about $100, I think, and then off you go. It's quite a long trip to the entrance. Do you have any video? And yeah, you sort of go follow the sort of stream bed, and it gets sort of a little bit rockier as you go along. And apparently this area is prone to flash flooding. Are you getting an idea that it's going to become a canyon soon? And I do wonder whether it was called Antelope Canyon. Is that where the antelope sort of had their own little stable, where they would, if they wanted to elude a predator, would they sort of go in there? You could almost imagine it would be a stalking ground for predators. So there you can see just how it's starting to, the canyon is starting to kind of evolve out of the dune. And let's go on to the next one. I think this is some video. Kind of getting rockier and rockier. It's quite a bumpy drive. But out of that silky sand that these silky rock formations basically form. So there's a little bit more video. It was very, very hot that day. That day was actually the hottest day so far. And then I don't know if you can see, it actually led to thunder showers, and it's been raining. There's been rain now as well. So there you get an idea of actually what the reality is like. That's the actual canyon, that sort of crack in the rock, right? And these are the sort of vehicles. We were in a vehicle kind of like that one, right? But there are lots of vehicles. There'll be about 10, 20 vehicles parked in front, and you each have your little moment in a spot, and then you go, and it takes about an hour to go through the whole that whole crack in the dune. And so there we are going in, or some people are going in, right? And you can see the beginnings of what you're about to see there on the left-hand side. You can see the beginnings of those striations. Okay. Gloria, good to see you. So that's kind of, again, approaching the inside. And the thing that is so, in a way, it's you a little deceived, because obviously these rocks on the outside aren't that different from the rocks on the inside. The difference is how the light plays on these rock formations, how a sort of a fairly narrow orifice of light turns these rocks into different colors. You can see it starting to happen already. And you see the tumbleweed on the right-hand side. And you may have noticed, if you've been following my Instagram, how fond I am of using bushes, plants, trees to frame whatever I'm photographing, I often anchor the viewer in a plant, in the way that the plant is doing this or doing that or pointing or whatever. Sort of try and use the arms of the plant to sort of say, look at this. How long does it take to transform? Guess thousands of years, if not millions. Long time. There's some people in our group. So that's standing with your back to the entrance, and if you didn't know it was there, you really wouldn't have a clue what was in there. I really feel like this little canyon was one of my favorite experiences so far in America. I mean, comparable to the redwood forest. So there we are, sort of, basically going in. This is still really the outside, and you see, as soon as you inside, there's some more tumbleweed. So I'm kind of on the outside, just kind of getting impatient for these folks, the group before us. You can see some of them standing there to sort of move on. It's almost like golf. You're sort of waiting for them to, finish their thing and move on to the next thing. So you're starting to get an idea of the ridges and so on that's going on. So as far as I know, this is where the water exits normally. So we were actually going in the wrong way. The water exits this way and enters on the other side. Um, okay. So something I should probably tell you as well that I find quite interesting is sometimes people go into this canyon and they leave ashes behind. In other words, they use it as a cemetery. And so you don't realize it, but when you're walking through this, you're actually also walking on people's ashes. It's quite often that people ask you, and I actually asked, do they have the ashes strewn like in a separate little corridor, in a separate chamber? No. And so when you're walking through there, you're actually probably walking on, the ashes of more than one person. Quite a weird thought. Okay, so now you're starting to get that sense of the light on the rock. So now we're starting to enter the sort of chamber. And you can really imagine that if there wasn't any light, it wouldn't be nearly as magical as what it actually is. It's the light and the rock that create this incredible effect. Almost like when you shine a torchlight against a human ear, except these rocks aren't transparent, right? Do the walls feel smooth? They don't feel as smooth as they look. They feel there's a texture to them. They feel kind of sandy. They don't feel like as smooth as a refrigerator. So this is still just trying to get in to the first things. And there you can see just how orange, right in the beginning, how orange these rocks appear just a few feet inside. Gloria says, I want my ashes thrown in a favorite beach. Okay. So there you can also start getting a sense of the effect that you get with this, with the light coming through the small apertures at the top there. Can you see how it's becoming more and more magical? It's becoming stranger and stranger. Okay, so I'm going to play that again if I can. As I say, the connection here is not great. Can you see when there's movement, it's also even more kind of strange. It's like something that as being so solid and rigid, rock, looks like silky curtains, feels like silky curtains. And look at that, looks like so many ribbons. And that's why I sort of left I can't remember if it was on the Patreon audio blog or the members only video, but I was just talking about just the varied forms that rocks can have. There are fabrics and tissues in rock in the same way that there are in our own bodies that break down in a certain way, that take shape in a certain way. And at a molecular level, these are very much like the relationships crystals have to one another. Crystals build up in a certain way according to certain patterns, but they also break down in a similar way. And, on a cellular level, that is similar with our bodies as well. So you can't help thinking that in a way you inside the body of something. Or is this what it would be like being inside, you know, an organ or the heart or something like that? And so that is a photo that the guy took of me. Isn't it amazing how such a rigid form, a rock, can have such gentle flowing lines? Something that is heavy and hard and solid can become so um, sensual in the way that it's worn down. I mean, again, if you just think again for a moment to what it looked like when you were on the outside of this canyon, you just saw flat sand. You saw sort of nondescript dunes with a couple of shrubs on them. And someone told you, what, there's something really special. No, I'm telling you, there's something really worthwhile. If you just keep going that way, would you have believed them? Would you believe that this would be waiting for you, right? And so that is also what is quite amazing with nature, is how unexpected it is, that you can have all the symptoms around you. Yes, there is sand. Yes, there is erosion. Yes, there is weathering. Yes, there are all the conditions. And then suddenly, well, it feels like suddenly, you have this sort of magical thing in the midst of it. And then, so why is it so surprising? And yet it is surprising, isn't it? Thanks a lot, Susan. I'm glad you appreciate it. And, like somebody said, there's nothing in the desert except what we bring to it. And I think that is why I like the desert. I quite like, in that emptiness, you can sort of experience yourself. You can test yourself. You can get a sense of yourself, and you get a sense of the world quieten down, and you can kind of hear yourself speak and think, and it's a kind of a simpler environment, right? Nature is pretty talented, yeah. So isn't that amazing, just in that image, the contrasts of color and shape, just in that one single image? And there are chambers in this little corridor where you could spend a long time just with your jaw hanging open and just taking everything in. And then, of course, you move on. Zircon says, I live in the Sonora Desert. Why is it called Sonora? Does it make noises? Is it, is it, why is it called Sonora? So I've got quite a lot of pictures. I'm going to just start moving through them quite quickly. Look at all of that variety of form, right? I think that's from some other animal, possibly an owl. So someone asked, is the rock smooth? It's actually not so smooth. It's actually not as smooth as it looks. In a way, it kind of looks like an oil painting. From a distance, it looks smooth. From up close, it's not smooth at all. Kind of like, oil painting. Thanks a lot, Murphy. Appreciate that. Okay. So, when you look at that, you're simply seeing, although it pretends to be a fluid, soft structure, it's nevertheless still solid. And I think what that then does is it calls to you and it questions your rigid ideas of the world. It questions your solid black and white impressions of your environment, where you've always sort of rocked, for example, you've always sort of the landscape in a certain way. You've always thought of the topography as, well, it's just the earth, it's soil, it's just the ground. And yet it is capable of this level of intricacy, right? And so too are trees. And I mean, I've seen that on my journey through America. Um, so too are we. We are also capable of being not more than what you see is what you get. And so I also wanted to include people in this image, for example, where you see these people, um, just wow, just awed by rocks. And I mean, that's kind of been the theme of the last couple of days. Arches, pillars, um, sheets of rock, fins of rock. And all it really is old rock that has been weathered in different ways. But you're still really just looking at rock. Josie, don't tell me you're a cave diver. I mean, if there's one thing that scares me from a claustrophobia perspective, it's definitely that. Thanks, Mel. So that is a kind of a stronger, there's some soft contours and contrasts. And here you actually see it, a kind of a harder version of that. I just wanted to, you can see the light, especially on the left hand side, is catching some quite sharp sort of angles. So there's soft forms within all of this, but then there also definitely your angular aspects as well. And inside there were a lot of people saying that they were seeing things, that they were seeing faces, that they were seeing Winnie the Pooh and all sorts of things. Josie says, I teach cave and technology diving. That's interesting. And so some of these shapes remind you of the human ear. They've got all sorts of names for all sorts of corridors. One is called the Devil's Eye. I'll see if I can remember that. But I mean, at ground level, there's simply dust, and probably some of that is ash, the ashes and bones of people. Deborah asked, was it cooler in there? Um, I can't really remember. Um, yeah, I guess it was. I mean, mostly because you in shade, right? If you were standing, I mean, when we were outside, we were in the sun, and that was definitely warmer. But you're just getting a sense of the ground level. And as I said, look how absolutely flat it is. That all of that rock has been worn down into, like you'd almost imagine, wouldn't the cave floor be a sort of undulating surface of rock as well? But it's a sea of sand, and as I say, there's human ash that's been purposely put in there as well. I found that quite surprising. So, what one, and I kind of have mentioned this before. One reason why this was quite a lot more magical than it would otherwise be is, when I was a kid, my aunt had pictures of Antelope Canyon in her bathroom with sort of biblical passages under it. And you'd sit in you'd be in the bath, or you'd be on the toilet or whatever, and you just wonder, where is this? And I didn't sort of know I'm now going to where that picture was taken. It was only while I was there that I realized, oh wow, I've actually seen this. This is world famous. The same with Horseshoe Canyon. I didn't like go, oh, I want to go to Horseshoe Canyon, it's world famous. It was only when I was there that I realized, wow, I've actually seen these pictures many times in my corner of the world. And oh, so this is where it comes from. And so that is kind of what made this quite magical is, in far-flung South Africa, actually in Cape Town. I mean, I just remember pertinently those posters my aunt had in her bathroom, in a little wooden house in a place called Hart Bay in Cape Town, one of the first houses in Hart Bay. But of course, I've seen it in other posters. You see them, sometimes with quotes on the internet. And you've seen it many, many times, but you don't actually know where it is. Well, now you do. Now you've actually been there, right? And that is also what made it quite surprising, because it's one thing to say, I want to go to where that picture is, and then you know what to expect, as opposed to, well, I know something about Antelope Canyon. Someone said it was worthwhile. Okay, well, let's go and have a look, and then you see this, and you realize, wow, right? That could be an intestine, or a throat, or an artery in the human body or an animal's body. I wonder what it's like going through there at night. Wonder what that feels like. I wonder what it's like when there's a little bit of water, just ankle deep that's flowing through there and the sun shining. I wonder what that's like. But the sort of abundant color that you see is this bright orange. So there's another picture where I just wanted to show the scale where you see the people and look just how tall the structure is. Look where the light is. So this is also going to give you an idea that the rock isn't really that smooth. And it's got some kind of fungus or something growing on it as well in places. Can you see it's not smooth? It's got a fine texture. So I kind of just wanted to capture something that you may not have seen before somewhere else. And so I thought by zooming in, then you're kind of getting that sense. So I'll play this for you guys again. Hopefully it'll capture the first few seconds of that. Again, note it's not smooth at all. Look at that. And then it's got some kind of, I don't know if that's fungus, but there's something growing on it as well. That's orange. It is prone to flash floods, yes. It is very porous as well. Mel says, I've never seen anything like this. Well, I'm glad to show you something you haven't seen before. Okay, so that's just another section. I just love the way it's sort of apart. It's kind of rock that used to be one, used to be a whole, and now it's two halves. Now it's sort of divided, split in two, and and then that split creates this beautiful dichotomy of space and space filled with something, light, and then curvatures and distortions of light, whatever something is and whatever something isn't. Yeah, it does kind of look like another planet, right? A couple of selfies, and then and you see, just look how orange that is. And you know that is a beautiful work of art. I mean, I wouldn't mind that in my home. What is it? It's just shapes of the weathered shapes of a particular rock with light shining on it. That's all it is. And yet it's there's something incredibly beautiful about it, right? I wonder what Van Gogh would have made of this. So again, this is a fairly close up. You can see that this is not, it's not very smooth rock. What's interesting is how the rock kind of goes in a particular direction, and then suddenly there's an angle, and then it goes in a different direction. right? It flows or seems to flow in a direction, and then it'll abruptly change, almost like the lines of a vehicle, right? Let me play that again. It flows in a direction, keeps flowing, and then abruptly there's a kink, and then it changes direction. So it really felt strange just taking, it felt like hundreds of photos just of the rocks around us, just like looking up and taking endless photos. But like I say, it felt like you could just stand where you were and just stare. Because where on earth have you seen something like this? And I'm sure there are places where you see a little bit of this, but this really is quite special. So can you see the pores on my hand, right? And then you see that it's almost like these rocks have got pores as well. Are we really that different? Are the textures of our skin that different to the surfaces of rocks? Our skin is porous, or isn't it? We've got pores in our skin, but it is supposed to be waterproof. Zircon said, did they rush you? Well, you spend about an hour in there, and actually, while we were in there, two people came out sort of the wrong way, which gives you an idea that something went wrong. Someone maybe felt claustrophobic or something. Maybe didn't like the idea. Maybe they were told that people's ashes are strewn in here, and suddenly got the heebie-jeebies. I don't know, but yeah, some people kind of did. But yeah, you have a group in front of you and a group behind you, and I don't know. I was just so captivated by looking up. I mean, you're looking up, taking photos, and somewhere along the line, you are told to move on, and then you do. But you end up spending about an hour just going through this sort of labyrinth of corridors. Thanks a lot for that, Sharon. Sharon says um, the Navajo name is the place where water runs through. One wonders what sound the water makes when it does run through there, and what these rocks look like when they're wet. If I'm not mistaken, this is the dragon's eye. If I'm not mistaken, do you think that looks like a dragon's eye? Does that look like a dragon's eye? Now, kind of hypothetically, you would imagine there would just be sort of one color, that it would sort of be almost this color on the left, that sandstone with a little light on it would simply just look different shades of brown or tan. And that is what's so remarkable. You get yellow and gold and orange and these sort of silky colors. It really is quite astonishing. Doesn't that look like you're looking down the throat of something? And so, again, I find this quite interesting, the way you have a plant actually seeming to be quite happy in your tumbleweed. And that wasn't the only one that we found. That I mean, there's not much life in there. I think there's an owl, and bear in mind that there are, thousands of people walking through here. It's not the ideal place for anything to live, and so you got a tumbleweed that's not in the way, that's living happily ever after. And I was just trying to get a shot without anyone else in it. Eventually, I think I got it. But there's something quite delicate about that as well. The contrast of I mean, this is actually death. The sand is dead. The rock isn't a living thing. And within that space, you do have this living thing, unless it just blew in there, but it does look like it's what was at one point a living bush. And so at one point, our guide threw sand onto a ledge, and then there again you can see a tumbleweed on the left. I think it's growing there naturally, and I find it quite beautiful. I find it quite beautiful that something has been able to grow in this environment. And there you see the sand sort of coming down. One does wonder what does this look like and feel like in the rain or after the rain. So I quite like that picture. It's the lines of this tumbleweed are even more delicate than the lines of the rock. It's just kind of a reminder that as beautiful as the rock is, it's not actually alive, right? There's a tumbleweed a little bit higher up. That one looks like it's blew into there, that it's not actually growing there. I'm not sure about the stalks on the right, but that doesn't look like it's actually growing there. Looks like it may have fallen in there from above. So as you can see, it just goes on and on, lots and lots of photos, lots and lots of forms. That previous one, again, you've got that sudden kink in the rock, almost like the design of a vehicle. That almost looks like where a wheel might be of a vehicle. So that is quite a dark part of the canyon. Um, Linda says, I think the orange stuff is iron. Um, the iron is often red, but you're right, it could be. I actually think I read about what it actually is. I think it's actually two things, but yeah. Okay, let's continue. Well, we already spent 45 minutes just looking at this. We want to get to Gogh letters eventually, right? So almost the time that it's taken me to show you this is about the same time it would take to go through it yourself and walk through it. So I think I've actually asked the guy to, he took a photo and then I missed it. So I actually asked him to take the photo again because I just wanted this idiosyncrasy of this hand coming from below holding this little LCD screen, because that's obviously what we were all doing. And just have that as part of the image. This small little device trying to record what you see beyond it, and kind of ask the question: do you know what you're seeing? Do you know what you feel about this? And as someone sort of asked a moment ago, you know, what is actually the reason for that color? Well, it's a good question. It's a good question. Answer: I don't think it is iron. Iron may be a component. I think it's something else. If someone wants to Google that so long, you're welcome. It's a pleasure, Deborah. And it's also a pleasure to be sharing this, given that it's orange. That something this special is in the colors of our channel, right? I love the way um, the rock behind sort of follows the silhouette of the rock in front in a way. That the rock in front is light and dark, right? Almost black, and then the rock behind it frames it, and it's a lighter color as well. It certainly plays with imagination. I'm quite surprised that they didn't find any petroglyphs or anything like that in here, but obviously to the hazard, you can't really live in these caves unless you um, like swimming. So there's another shot just of the guy taking a photo. You can see at the top of the image are the roots of a plant. Not going to find much in the way of anything coming through there. That is filling up. I think that's about. There's still more to come, but that is around the corner. Some more pictures. There you can kind of see just a log that got trapped, and sort of debris that didn't quite make its way down. I didn't really know that I was pointing towards the lowest shadow there, but it actually looks like I'm reaching towards the shadow. Which is that previous one? Look how red that is. Okay, so that is in a store. Sorry, some of these are a little bit out of context. I kind of want to show you when we came out of the canyon what that looked like. So there you can see some sand in the foreground. There you go. I quite like that image. I think there's a better one than that. So I just want to get us to where we come out the other side. So some of these pictures are a little bit out of order. That's a bit out of order. Not quite sure why it's doing that, but anyway. Okay, come on, we want to get out of here. So I think we're approaching the exit now. These are some of my favorite photos. These, look how dark the dark is, look how light the light is. Look at the level of contrast. Excuse me. So this is us coming out the other side. That's pretty close to the exit. That's the other thing that's quite astonishing about this experience is if you look up, there's no what do you call it? There's nothing anchors you. It's not symmetrical, so you sort of get lost in. I mean, if you look down, you know which way to go. You go forward, but when you look up, there's sort of nowhere. Everything is just coming from whatever side it's coming from. Okay, so that's on the other side. Sorry, some of these photos are, but so that is what the other side of the canyon looks like. Again, looks fairly nondescript. You wouldn't really think that there's too much going on there. That's stepping a bit further out. Again, you wouldn't really think that you would just think, oh, it's a couple of rocks next to each other. You wouldn't really think that too much is going on. That's even further away, looking back. And you can see whatever is happening is starting to happen on the rocks on either side. So you don't often see what it looks like outside of these. So this is looking down the valley, with your back to the exit. You don't often see these sort of views. And so that dune that you're seeing above there in the rock, that's basically what we basically passed through. Looks pretty ordinary, doesn't it? So I just want to respond to some of the comments made. Zircon says it's camouflage, and also you'd never know, right? And what I really appreciate about those comments are, is this sort of, um, if you kind of bring this back to true crime. um, True crime is about recognizing subtlety, and I often feel like the true crime community as a whole are pretty lousy at recognizing subtlety, especially the subtleties of psychology. We like to be very black and white. We like to be very simplistic. We like things to be very obvious. But that is not how reality is. Reality is not obvious. People aren't as obvious as we think they are. We are not as obvious as perhaps we make ourselves out to be. And so, this canyon, first of all, the discovery of it isn't obvious. To a geologist would say, yes, you would expect something like that, blah, 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 blah. Yes, but nevertheless, although it's, you could say, predictable or to some extent expected, it's nevertheless a surprise. And so the fact that we can be surprised in this way should kind of be a warning or a indication that we don't know all there is to know. Things aren't, even something like, okay, well, look, the land is right in front of you. Can't you see what is right in front of you? Yes, sometimes you can't. Sometimes things are hidden. Often things are hidden in plain sight. Sometimes something right in front of you simply cannot see. Sometimes you just can't imagine that something really complicated and surprising is right there in front of you. And that is something that one needs to sort of recognize and sort of be humble about it, to say, sometimes we are surprised. We think we've seen it all. We know what to expect, but sometimes we don't, right? Life and reality does have the capacity to not only surprise us, but astonish us, right? In ways that are good and in other ways that are disturbing sometimes, right? So, so that's one thing. The other thing is criminals are pretty good at doing the same thing. You can imagine a criminal who comes from, let's say, Utah, right? Or a criminal that has passed through Utah, someone, let's say, like Brian Laundrie, may have looked at the same landscape and said, wow, so many people were fooled by this. So many people were so easily fooled by this. It's so easy to fool people. I wonder if I can't fool people as well. You know what I'm saying? In other words, a landscape can actually inform one person's psychology in terms of another, where you might say, you know what, I actually come from a landscape where people think X, Y, Z, and it's actually a lot more complicated than that. You know, tourists come there and they blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? Brian Laundrie came into this landscape and it was easy to hide things in it. It was easy to get lost in it. It was easy to underestimate what was there. And so isn't that why I thought the best place to hide Gabby Petito was in plain sight, just literally just below the surface of the ground? And although that thinking maybe isn't the first time a criminal has ever thought that, he may have thought he's a criminal mastermind. Of course, he wasn't. Someone says maybe part copper. Copper usually turns green. Yeah, that's true. Good to see you, Terry. Okay, so let's go on. I think there's just a couple more photos and then we'll go on to Van Gogh letters. So uh, just quite surprised that the internet connection is held up. It's only showing a partial signal, two bars instead of three. So this is how you leave the area. You sort of walk up a sand dune, then there's like a stairway, some more tumbleweed on the side. Look at the rocks to the right. And then that's, from a distance, that's the corridor through which we've just moved. It really doesn't seem that special at all. In fact, if you're walking, if you're getting from A to B and you saw that, would you really go and investigate it? Would you really go and take a closer look? So that's sort of the view as you're sort of walking along. And I really did find it quite amazing that you've got these bright flowers right growing out of this sandy thing. And how does the plant manage to find whatever it is in the soil to create such incredible color and probably fragrance as well? That's also quite magical. I mean, you can go crazy about the forms inside that canyon, but just its flower is a marvel as well. Josie says, I would, but then again, I'm different. So then this is when you come around the other side, you go down this sort of walkway. All of this is quite a contrast to the, you've got this delicate passage, sort of winds through these incredible formations, and you come back through this man-made, clunky, um, you know, thing. Quite a contrast. Anyway, that's just afterwards. I don't think I've got really any more photos. So anyway, that's kind of the environment a little bit further away. So I hope you found that worth your attention. Mel says that colorful flower is such a pleasant surprise. Sure is. Okay, so we are here to do Van Gogh letters. We are going to do one letter at least. This one. I'm a little bummed out for a couple of reasons. One is, like just before I came on here, I probably spent an hour writing out on True Crime Rocket Science something about good and evil, and like what you've just spoken about, the subtlety in these rock formations. Things aren't like black and white. And so I spent an hour writing this down, and I really thought I'd done it well. I thought this is the first piece of writing in a while that I thought I'd executed pretty well. It was well thought out and so on. And then, I don't know, there were different pictures I put there, and then I hit the wrong button and I lost all of it. About an hour's worth of writing. And I'm telling you, I just was furious, but what can you do? You just wasted time. And then I just, what can you do? I just sat down and I tried to rewrite it, and it was probably 60% as good. But anyway, so I did that. Also today, the weather, for the first time in a while, didn't really play ball. It was cold and rainy this afternoon. So I am sleeping here tonight. So and Zion isn't that far away. So if it's sunny-ish tomorrow, I might be able to see something. There's a lot here that's worth seeing, and I really haven't seen much of what is worth seeing. I did really enjoy my walk to the Mossy Cave. Sorry, not to the cave. That was actually pretty ordinary. The Mossy Cave trail I found pretty fun. I kind of got lost, but that took me to some pretty cool areas. Thanks a lot, Let. Is it Let or Letty? Anyway, so let's deal with Van Gogh letters. I'm only going to deal with this one letter. So let's pull it up. I think I'm gonna put this here for now. It's gonna let me. Okay. Right. Are you guys ready? At last, we're going to get to Van Gogh letters number 56. Right. And this one is dated August 18th, 1888. So isn't that 18081888, right? My dear Theo, many thanks for your kind letter and the 100-franc note enclosed. So Theo is just like clockwork, sending his brother money, day after day. To the extent that we've been intrigued by the color orange and the shapes within that color orange. Van Gogh, as we know, is very caught up in yellow, and what do wheat fields look like under the yellow sun? That is the thing that is magical to him, like at this point. And it's very good of you to promise the two of us, Gogh and me, that you'll put us in the way to carrying out our combination. So as late as August, Theo basically undertakes that he's going to look after both of them. Then he says, I've just had a letter from Bernard, who went some days ago to join Gogh. Remember, Bernard's kind of in the military services. It is Labelle and somebody else at Ponthaven. It was a very decent letter, but not one syllable in it about Gauguin intending to join me. So can you see how Vincent's kind of had his hopes up for so long? He's lonely. He wants to be joined by Gauguin, and Gauguin just seems to be in his own world. And up until and Vincent's making all these arrangements on Gauguin's behalf, and Gauguin is just really doing whatever he wants to do, and that's kind of um, a sign, an indicator for what's to come, isn't it? Sharon says, this has been such a wonderful video. I've enjoyed your commentary. Thanks very much. Sharon says, on the way to Zion, there's an ancient Indian village. Stop if you see it. We stayed there one night. Well, can you let me know the name of it? The pleasure, Gloria, pleasure. Linda, it was typed on a YouTube community post, so it wasn't typed on a Word document. I mean, I know all about that. So no, I definitely did lose it, and unfortunately, a really eloquent passage that I had copied and then pasted in the text itself, I lost because I copied a silly little thing that I was Googling. If it's so simple, why haven't you done it already? And so I even lost that paragraph. Anyway, as horrible as that was, I think the real test is how do you deal with disappointment? And I was quite surprised at how angry I was. I was really angry. If there was someone in the room with me at that moment, so Gauguin is being selfish. So anyway, he goes on to say he has heard anything from Bernard in the letter. He also says from Gauguin himself, not a word for almost a month. And you can tell that Vincent's feeling quite hurt by this. He's lonely, he's vulnerable, he's hoping to be joined by this friend, and his friend seems to be quite selfish. It says, I myself think that Gauguin would rather try to fight his way through with his friends in the north, and if by good luck he sells one or more pictures, he may have other plans for himself and coming to join me. So can you see Van Gogh has kind of got quite a low opinion of himself. Let me zoom in to this a little so you guys can read it. If you want to read it, you can head to this link. It's just, Murphy, it's like the worst thing, like you've just wasted a lot of your time. And obviously, if you write it again, you put it there. But I mean, it was easily 45 minutes that it took to write that, and it was so well expressed in the way that I wanted to express it, because it's quite a delicate topic. So anyway, no, I sort of feel like I've not dealt with true crime for a while, and then when I do deal with it, that happens. It kind of like, I don't know. It's frustrating. Anyway, it says, but haven't I, with less desire than he for the struggle in Paris, the right to go my own way? Look here, as soon as you can, would you not give but lend me 300 francs in one lump sum for a year? So this is quite a big request from him. He's asking for quite a big lump sum from Theo. He says, then if I take it that you present, then if I take it that at present you send me 250 francs a month and will only send me 200 after this, until the 300 paid out at once would be paid off. Then I should buy 2 decent beds, all complete at 100 francs each, and 100 francs worth of other furniture. So can you see Vincent's response to Gauguin not saying a word, not a syllable about wanting to come there? His response to that, isn't that he kind of sees that as a warning, or sees that as a message? His response instead is to start going to buy furniture, to set up a place for Gauguin to stay, right? He says that would mean that I could sleep at home and could put up Gauguin or anybody else. That would mean a gain of 300 francs a year, or I pay a franc a night to my landlord. I could feel what it was like to have more of a fixed abode, and really it is only on this condition that one can work. I've got to say that I totally agree with Van Gogh on this. If you guys have noticed that my sorry, I only want to add this part. So he says, as soon as you can. Sorry, that's not the part that I want to. He says, I should feel what it was like to have more of a fixed abode, and really it is only on this condition that one can work. I can tell you that that is absolutely true. I've lived all over the world. I've lived all over South Africa. Right now, I've been all over America, and I can tell you it's very difficult to just, like you've just seen now. You know, part of the reason why I think I lost that that writing was because I'm a little bit scattered. I'm not used to this. This is not a really good desk setup. Let's just do this. So let me show you quickly what the space that I'm working in, right? So prepare to be shocked. So this is the microwave fridge switch. There's the there's the microwave. There's the refrigerator. Here's my computer setup. Look at the narrow sort of ledge that it's on. And then here's tonight's dinner. But you can see it's because it's on. It's not like an ideal desk setup, right? Because it's not really an ideal desk setup. It's sort of like a counter. It's not very wide either. It you know, you're a little you're not used to that, and also anyway, and because of that, you thinking about all sorts of things, and that messes up your concentration and your focus, right? And of course, this doesn't help either. Although I had this after I lost the writing, so that didn't really. Yeah, there is a bed. There are 2 beds here. I actually think I'm in a great spot. Outside it is really wonderful. There's a wonderful restaurant here. I'm in a very good location. The only thing that my only complaint about where I'm staying is the desk. In probably 6, 7, 8 of the last places I've stayed, the desks have been more than adequate. Yeah, that's quite a good one. I have actually been saying when I book a hotel, please make sure there's a good desk, and there always has been. So anyway, okay, so let's go back to Van Gogh. So I actually think I'm gonna make that the title of this video. He says, having a fixed abode is really the only way that one can work. And as I was sort of saying earlier, you know, have you noticed how Have you noticed how erratic my uploads have been? I'm normally super consistent. I just want to, I should feel what it is like. So I'm just changing the title here. I should have more of a fixed abode. And I think it was Virginia Woolf who said something similar. She said, you know, a woman cannot work, or you can't write without a room of one's own. And I must say, until I sorted out my kind of home environment, um, yeah, until I did that, I definitely struggled to be consistent and to sort of make any kind of progress. Please just bear with me for a moment. I'm just trying to edit this while it's sort of top of mind. I'll be there in a second. I mean, the push and pull is all about, when you traveling, do you work, and then, well, then how are you traveling? I suppose you can say, and I mean, I really did enjoy sharing the Antelope Canyon with you guys, but if I did that every single day, then it would interrupt the actual business, not the business, the process of traveling, because the time that you could be spending um, traveling, getting somewhere, you actually spending editing pictures or whatever it is. And that is why I can really understand what Gabby Petito was going through, because she really needed to have done that. She really needed to have, um, what do you call it? She needed to have been far more consistent. If you're wanting to make a living um, on social media, then you really do need to be very consistent and very active, and they weren't. Gabby and Brian weren't. And of course, if you ask what is more fun, traveling and not being on social media all the time and not trying to monetize every experience, the answer is yeah, just traveling and enjoying it. Certainly that is the case. But Gabby and Brian were trying to make a career before having set up their social media. They were trying to make a career out of it, you know. Anyway, so I think I've done that. So I think we're ready to continue. Okay, sorry about that. Home base, that's right. Murphy says van life is hard too. I must say one thing I've definitely appreciated is just how tough it must have been coming to environments like Bryce Canyon, like um, Moab in June. I mean, it's hot enough now. Sorry, not June. They were there in August. They were there like at the hottest time of the year. That must have been really, really tough. Yeah, and I also think, as you say, it's not just the logistics. It's not just and maybe this is the most important aspect. It's not just the logistics and that you know where everything is and everything's in its place and that you've got your workspace and that everything is sort of sorted out. It's also that you've got a sense of, um, that you in the right place and in the right space and everything is set up for you, right? I know when I moved into the place that I'm living in now in South Africa, it's quite weird that you say that, Mel, because the first thing I did was I planted trees. I was planting all sorts of things exactly for that reason. I wanted to feel rooted. And I think this is exactly what Van Gogh, and I was about Van Gogh's age. I was about 34, 35 when I moved in there. Sorry, and I was a little bit older. I was actually about 41, so a little bit older than him. But he's obviously feeling that thing right now. Yeah, it's also wanting to belong. He's feeling that thing right now that I've actually been such an itinerant chap. I've been here, there, everywhere. In order to produce good work, I need to start settling down, right? I need to not have that um, as something else to worry about. And it's absolutely true. That is also why I think he produced the Potato Eaters when he did, because he was staying at home. And there's quite a long period, although there was some arguing and argy-bargy with his parents, there was at least stability. And an artist does need stability in order to um, venture down those corridors, those mental corridors. Josie, just a little smile. Thanks a lot. Okay. I do think that Gauguin is the one who damaged Vincent's ear. I do. Okay, so shall we continue with the letter? So let's put this back where it was. So he says, this would not. So the other thing about being in one place and being in a stable, consistent environment is that you lower your expenses that way. You know, like exactly what I'm doing now, where you spend 1 or 2 days somewhere, then you move, spend 1 or 2. It's expensive. It's and I mean, I'm not here to work. I'm not here to try and economize whatever. Right? I'm just saying that while Van Gogh was doing that, moving around and so on, he needs to kind of have a home. He needs to kind of be in one place. And that's what the Yellow House is all about. And the tragedy is, bear in mind, right now it's August 1888. So let's take August, September, October, November. He basically just had 5 months in the Yellow House. And we know that he produced some incredible art during that time. And then he lost it. He lost his ear, but he also lost his home. And then he spent a year in the asylum, which was a home of its a home in its own right, and not a very nice home, but it was a stable environment. Artists do need that. And if I'm honest with you, I would be telling you, as much as I'm enjoying traveling through America, I sort of do miss um, that thing where you're in one place for like a week, where you can just sort of relax and. So there are times that I enjoy um, moving across the landscape, and you aren't in the same place from one day to the next. There are times that I enjoy that, but there are definitely times where I feel like in order to really absorb where you are, you want to sort of luxuriate in that sense of place. And I kind of got that when I was in California with my high school friend, when I spent about a week, a little bit less than a week, with at his home. But the flip side to that is, while you're enjoying yourself, while um, where you want to be, you also, there are other people that live there as well that want to do what they want to do, and you now in their space, right? And I mean, they were very accommodating and kind, but I mean, you see what I'm saying? So, I mean, that's really the challenge for a freelancer is, I'm talking about in the early times, in the beginning, finding the best place to base yourself. So I am wondering, if I come back to America again, how am I going to do? How am I going to travel? And the answer might be a week or two of travel, and then I think a week or two staying in one place. Week or two of travel, week or two of staying in one place, something like that. I don't think the answer is just one or the other. Anyway, so he goes on to say, this would not increase my expenses for the whole year, but it would provide me with some furniture and the possibility of making both ends meet. Then whether Gauguin comes or not is his own business. And as soon as we are ready to have him and his bed and room are there, we shall be keeping our promise. Now, I don't know if you notice what kind of stands out with this is the equanimity. Van Gogh seems to be quite sort of sensible and mature in his attitude to Gauguin. He almost seems to be aware and wary that Gauguin is not terribly reliable, that Gauguin is quite selfish, that Gauguin has his own agenda, and he seems to be kind of he seems to kind of accept that, right? Um, and that makes it all the more surprising that when Gauguin does pitch up, that there's such a spectacular disaster between the two of them. And I think you can only ascribe that to them having incompatible personalities, and also that Gauguin is a really bad influence on Van Gogh, that Gauguin is a drinker and that he spends a lot, and that his appetite for women is um, what's the word? It's different. That's the word to Van Gogh's. But all of these things together make Gauguin a really bad influence on Van Gogh, right? And so basically, Van Gogh is in quite a good mind space, is and workspace and headspace. His attitude is right. His work ethic is right. Theo has got enough money to cover everything. Everything is looking really good. And then Gauguin enters the picture and it's a big fuck up, basically, right? And it's because Gauguin is this sort of force of nature on the one hand, but the other hand is that he's not a really good friend. He's not a really good guy, certainly not to other guys, certainly not to Van Gogh. And the other thing I think is that Van Gogh is quite a sensitive soul. Do you agree with that? That's actually quite funny. Yeah, definitely. But stability should also not be a cage. You know, you should also sometimes welcome instability. Okay, so let's continue. So he says, I insist on this. The plan remains just as real and solid whether Gauguin comes or not, seeing that our object doesn't change. To deliver me and one of the comrades from this cancer, that's quite strong words, right? He's saying this is our goal, this is our plan, this is our objective. It's to deliver me and one of the comrades from this cancer that is gnawing at our work. This being forced to live in these ruinous inns without any profit to ourselves. Now, I must say, if I do continue traveling through America for another 3 months or another 6 months, I would probably also start referring to where I'm staying as ruinous inns, especially if I continued to not work at the rate that I'm not working. Anyway, he says, it is pure madness. To be carefree, to hope that someday or another one will be free from want, what a dream. So this is a rare letter where he actually talks openly about his feelings about work and leisure and life, right? He's saying, what a dream just to be carefree one day. What a dream to be free from want. I should think myself very happy if I could work for a wage just sufficient to keep me in peace in my studio all my life. So he doesn't want to be rich. And I mean, this is what's so incredible is Van Gogh's art will become some of the most valuable art in the world, worth tens of millions of dollars. And he had none of that benefit when he was alive. He says, well, though I repeat once more that I don't much care whether I settle in Ponthaven or in Hull, I intend to be immovable on this point of having a fixed studio and sleeping there and not in an inn. If you're kind enough to enable Gauguin and myself to settle down like that, I only say that if we do not take this opportunity to escape from lodging keepers, we are throwing all your money and our means of resisting this besieging poverty into the gutter. And so even though Theo would be kind enough, um, they would lose that the Yellow House, everything, all of their plans ended when Van Gogh lost his ear. And I mean, it did cost Theo some money as well. He had to come down and rescue him. Anyway, so for the umpteenth time, he says, "On this, my mind is quite made up, and I will not yield on that point. Under the present conditions, though I'm spending money, I haven't even what is necessary, and I do not feel I've strength enough left to go on like this for long." So this is quite a rare admission where it says, "I've been working really hard. I actually don't feel like I've got enough strength I can't keep up this work ethic." And I think what he's sort of talking about is feeling lonely and he needs something. He needs support. He needs, um, yeah, I guess he needs some kind of moral support. He's like a candle in the wind in a way. Anyway, he says, if Gauguin can find the same opportunity at Ponthaven, it's all right. But I'll tell you this, once here and this expense is over, the work would be done. He says, the sun here counts for a good deal. There it is. As it is, I'm going to pieces and killing myself. Now, the way I understand that, tell me if you agree, it is saying it's the sun. Bear in mind, he's writing this in August. The same thing we were saying about Gabby and Brian. The sun was really wearing him down, like going out in the middle of summer in the heat of the day. Every day was really wearing him down. And I had the situation today. I went out. It was extremely hot when I went out this morning, and went from extremely hot to a thunderstorm threatening, and then it did actually rain, and went from extremely hot to, wouldn't say extremely cold, but chilly. I would say it was cold. Went from extremely hot to cold. But I mean, I've got the advantage of a vehicle that's got air conditioning, and you can turn the heater on, and also I can come home to turn on the air conditioning here or the heater. I don't know if Gabby and Brian, you don't have air conditioning in the tent. I don't know if Van Gogh had any air conditioning where he was saying, well, they barely had electricity in that time. So you can imagine how the sun is it's sapping his strength, not only his physical strength, but it is wearing down his motivation, right? And in the same way that canyon that we were looking at, those beautiful forms, well, what that actually is a process of erosion where water and sun and wind are just wearing down the rock relentlessly, right? And rock, as hard and as resilient as it seems, can be totally worn down, right? In the same way, people can be worn down also by um, things as simple as heat. If you live in Canada, maybe the cold. In some places, the wind, the wind just constantly shrieking and battering can also be a force to deal with. I know in some parts of South Africa, the wind comes up every afternoon and it just blows, and that can actually affect your um, your peace of mind, but not just your peace of mind, your state of mind. And so, just the heat. If you think about it, Van Gogh went to the south to see the sun, to celebrate the sun. He goes to all for the sun. And now the sun is like this curse. Now the sun, I mean, he wants to paint his house yellow, but now the sun is actually the fairy tale effect that he's been celebrating is now his curse. It's draining him of energy. It's you know, is out there in the field, sweat's pouring down his face. He's weakened. He's depleted. His resilience is being tested. just by this relentless throbbing sun, right? And there you have it, kind of in black and white. He says, I'm going to pieces and killing myself. He doesn't mean I'm suicidal. He's saying the sun here is really doing a lot to hurt my resolve. And I've got to say, I'm a little bit, well, what did I do? I'm a little bit blue today myself because, I don't know, because of the weather. And the weather on one day can be frustrating, on another day, frustrating, but when it's enough days in a row, you can feel yourself despairing, right? In fact, I actually came to America with the idea of dodging our winter, only to come into colder but more beautiful winter conditions that we ever have in South Africa. Snow all over the place. I mean, a couple of days that I attended trial in Boise were colder than the coldest days in midwinter in my country. It's quite ironic. Anyway, he says, well, I've said my say. I'm not coming to Ponthaven if I have to stay at the inn with the English and the people from the École des Beaux-Arts that you argue with every evening. It's a storm in a teacup. So he's kind of, in this letter, basically saying, I want stability. I want a bedroom. I want to get beds in the yellow house, and it's a way to save money, but I want stability. And is kind of making a grown-up decision for the first time in a long time. But bear in mind, it's all on Theo. Theo's got to pay for everything. Is that fair? I mean, the proper way, in a way, to sort this out is that Vincent finds some way to, I guess, cover his own costs. I mean, is Theo going to be there forever, kind of thing? Okay, so I'm not going to go on to the next letter here. I wonder what has just happened here. Is it a bit of a glitch? Anyway, so this is the next letter, also from the 18th of August and from Vincent to Bernard. I'm not going to read it. I think my voice might actually be disturbing guests. I'm not sure if they can hear me next door. But it's 10:30 here. And so I'm not really going to take it any further than that. I hope you found this episode worthwhile. So have a look at some of your comments. Gloria says it's 36 degrees in Buffalo right now. Fahrenheit, I take it. Well, if that's the case, that's freaking cold. My butt hurts on this chair, must say. Sharon says, true about the sun just zapping energy. Yeah, I mean, I also need the sun for my photography. I believe that it was raining cats and dogs in Moab, so it looks like I left Moab at the right time. We'll see what the weather's like. Everywhere that I'm hearing about flooding, and I mean, even on the drive to Bryce Canyon, I saw a river burst its banks. So I, I would be surprised if there's not a lot of flooding, given how much snow I've seen, especially in the Pacific Northwest. Anyway, we'll see. Helena says we all need someone to love me. Yeah. I don't know what you guys think. Someone was complaining on Team Peachtree, I could never leave my dog behind like you have or whatever. It just makes me wonder if I should share things about my dog if I'm going to be criticized that way. Like, everywhere I go, I see signs saying dogs not allowed. So if I was traveling with my dog, what would I be doing? Leave the dog in my hotel room? Was that different to um, leaving him at home? Also, if it costs more to bring my dog to America, right, then you just say, okay, well, bring your dog to America. Yeah, but it costs more to bring my dog to America. And then you say, okay, well, then do that. But then if that's the case, then you can only spend so much time in America because of additional costs and so on. And there's certain things you can't. But what about attending trial? My dog can't. What do I do? Lock my dog in an Airbnb while I'm in the courtroom? I just find that kind of thing quite unfair. But it makes me think maybe I shouldn't be sharing so much of my life on, for example, YouTube, because I just find those sort of criticisms unfair. My dog is being taken for a walk every day. He's living at home. He's not in a kennel. He's got other dogs for company as well. He gets taken to a field with the other dogs. Um, I do miss him, but I mean, I don't know, should I stay with him for his mental health? And you might say, yes. What about my mental health? But then you shouldn't have gotten a dog. I don't know. I'm going to be back in South Africa with my dog within a couple of weeks. And then, I don't know. I actually think my dog is a better life than most dogs. I live with my dog. I don't sort of go to work and then come back. This is the first time I think I've ever done that, sort of gone, not that this is to work, but gone somewhere and, in about 3 years. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Intercoastal Carry says, for me, will be okay. I just caught this. Well, sorry, you just in time for the sign off. I'm about done here. Thanks a lot, Murphy. I guess I need a bit of reassurance. I'm looking forward to seeing Timmy. Often when I see people with other dogs, um, what's the word? I wish that Timmy was with me. Sometimes on my travels, I enjoy my independence, but other times I'm a little bit lonely, and I wouldn't mind walking around with a dog, with my dog. So it's just the pace of travel that I'm doing wouldn't really work with a dog. Um, I don't quite know how you solve the air travel problem, because I don't know if I would want my dog in the cargo hold and maybe come out as a possible icicle. Well, part of Yosemite is closing due to floods. That's interesting. Paddy says, I feel such an uneducated heathen. I know more about Corvan Gogh than Vincent. I've been on board the beautiful Brittany ferry named the Ponthaven. I never made the connection with the artist. Paddy, are you still in Ukraine? Zircon says, what's next on your agenda? Well, I'm going to Lyon tomorrow. I'm also going past that forest that is the biggest living organism in the world, like an aspen forest. That's all one root system. And then I'm going to Salt Lake City, and um, then I'm actually quite close to Boise and also quite close to Moscow. So if I really want to, I suppose I could attend that court appearance in Moscow, but I've already made not holiday, hotel and flight plans going up until the next 3 weeks. Thanks a lot, Jody. Yeah, thanks a lot. Um, I want to recommend to you guys, if you can get hold of this, have one of these on me. Son of a Peach, Utah Brewing Company. I'm definitely going to try and get another one of these. These are really pretty good. I had my first one today. The last couple of comments, Nick. Thanks a lot. Yeah. That's sensible advice. Yeah, it can be. Mm. I would like to travel with him somewhere. I think one's just got to figure out what will work. There just are always protocols once you take an animal across an international border. I've always enjoyed taking Timmy to the beach. He loves the wild coast, that's for sure. Okay. Unless I can somehow get Timmy trained as a service dog, you know. Murphy says, have you seen a lot of van travelers? A whole community, yeah. It's beer. It's beer. Check it out. Okay, so that's it from me. Thanks a lot for joining me on this somewhat impromptu session. Sorry that it's so erratic. Sometimes like last night, I really thought I was gonna be able to do it, and um, sometimes things just sort of, you know, happen. Sometimes I'm tired. Sometimes a restaurant is closing. Sometimes something else is coming up. Yeah, I mean, if you do put all your eggs in that basket, you don't know whether the actual trial is going to be in June, July, or August, or even where it's going to be. Gloria says good night. Good night, Gloria. Lisa says just joined. Good to see you, Lisa. Sorry that I didn't see you when I was in Seattle. Um, but who knows? Maybe in the future. Lisa, I hope you've gotten your voice back and that you feeling better. Imagine you must be. Um, Josie says good night. Good night. Loris, good night as well. Um, Lisa, you just joined. You're going to have to watch from the beginning. Okay, guys, thanks a lot for being here. Take care. And yeah, check out my Instagram for hopefully beautiful pictures of Zion. I've bought a ticket into Bryce Canyon, and hopefully I can still get some of the beautiful scenery that's there. I know it's there, but if it's raining, what can one do? So hold thumbs for that. Thanks very much. So on that note, guys, take care, keep weaving, and I'll see you guys next time. Ciao. Thanks a lot for all the super chats, and I've really enjoyed your you guys being here and your support and your encouragement. Really appreciate it. Okay. Thanks a lot, Lisa. You guys watching on the rerun, also, uh, although I'm not seeing you live, good to see you and hopefully see you live soon. Take care. Ciao.